Hello, everybody. 2021. Happy New Year. Back to the climb. Everybody climbing this year. This is Jon with the Digital Mastermind. And today we have a really good show. Beginning the top of the year, have an interview with Drew Meclellen that we're going to be go over from the American Marketing Institute. Fantastic guy. But before we get into all that, Dave, why don't you come out here?
Hey.
There he is. Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year.
So, out of all of 2020, what is your biggest takeaway? The thing that you walk away with as a learned business, memory, maybe.
The thing that I would probably say that was the most eye-opening is that our customers are essential. Like the thing that we learned about our customers that we didn't know before.
I think that one of my biggest takeaways is the employees, right? I always had this mindset that employees had to be in this box. And I know I've said it time and time again on the show, but yeah, they don't. People, it's not that they necessarily couldn't be trusted. I don't know. I just think it was just an old school nuanced thing that just doesn't exist. And I can't speak enough about our team and the way they've been able to perform. Some of them are traveling all over the United States and doing other types of things, but still hitting their, performance metrics. So I think that's just, fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, that was certainly amazing. The ability that everyone adapted so quickly. That was completely unexpected. And we should have been on this model before the pandemic.
But I think shocks like this are good. Granted, a ton of bad things have happened. People are out of business, of course. Way worse. There's been a lot of devastation. But I think shocks to the system are healthy as they encourage changes like this. Granted, I don't want any of this in 2021 for sure, right? I mean, we want a substantially better year. But I'm happy with a lot of the things that happened.
Well, I believe that the long-term damage to the economy for businesses not opening and not, without face-to-face, working is, long-term is going to be bad for our industry. I mean, the number of small businesses that have closed because of, is going to rear its head eventually.
Yeah, and I think there will be
float to the top. Maybe we're the cream. We're the cream.
The exception. Yeah, Mom always said I was never the exception, but maybe in this case, it's different. I think the other thing too is, of course, all the money that's been doled out, diminishing with the dollar. That's going to be something that's really going to be, I don't know, something to look at, because as our value goes down, especially in what we do, outsourcing becomes different because the worth
becomes
of what
not as valuable.
Exactly. Right. So that's something that could be more attractive to the tech sector, which has been, of course, plagued with nearshore, offshore, and work just going, to other places.
Yeah, I mean, that's, sad. But Bitcoin's flying right now. I mean, last time I checked, $33,000 for a Bitcoin.
Are they giving out real ones yet? Did
somebody? I mean, they're not real. They're called rounds, they're coins. And we actually bought, I'd say about 4 years ago, bought a copper Bitcoin for every employee and doled them out.
Is this a real Bitcoin?
No, they were smarter than that. But it was neat. I probably still have one around here somewhere, but yeah, it's pretty cool. It's cool to hold.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the biggest changes this year, is people are going to continually look at currency, especially with the new administration coming in. There's going to be a shakeup. Who knows what it's going to do to foreign policies? But that silver lining would be, if the dollar unfortunately does tank, the value of everything you have, of course, goes down. But at the same time,
actually
could potentially hurt our economy.
Well, real property goes up. Real property goes up. Precious metals, real estate. Things like that will go up as the dollar goes down, which is why the real estate market is going crazy right now.
But the value doesn't go up.
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
The value of it is the same, the amount of dollars it takes to get that. The sad thing is, for the older generation, people later in their career, their life's work is being devalued, and that's what sucks. Like your savings account, as the dollar loses its value, is stealing from your past. That sucks.
I know. That's what almost gets me to be at a moment of speechless, because that's the part that hurts the most. All this cash that you have, it's just it's becoming less valuable. So you need to really do something with it. And then of course, property's at an all-time high right now. So it's not really something you can invest in there. And yeah, it's 33,000. What was it 2 months ago? It was like 20,000. Maybe 3 months ago it was like at 20,000.
Yeah, 2 years ago it was 3,000. I mean, it's insane how it's flying. So, Bitcoin, gold, all that is going to be a hedge against inflation and devaluing of the dollar. So
I'll buy 2 Bitcoins if I don't have to see some bro video of some guy telling me how, he's driving a Lamborghini and flying in helicopters every day because of his ability to invest. I can't stand seeing those. And man, dude, they haven't stopped.
I just want to own a Bitcoin. Just one full Bitcoin one day. Yeah. Like when obviously it's going to crash some point again. Last time it reached, like, I think it was 19,000 was the peak, or 20,000. And then, a year after that, it was back down to 3,000. So it'll happen again. And when it does, I'm just going to bite the bullet, and I want to buy one whole Bitcoin just to say I have one whole Bitcoin.
All right, I'll do it with you, because the last time I purchased is when I came up with my final philosophy on I only invest things I can influence the outcome of, is when it peaked. It literally was at the peak. A friend called up, "You got to invest now," who's a financial planner, who is not my financial planner.
Right.
And I was like, all right, this guy knows what he's talking about. Yeah, I got to buy, man, this thing. And yeah, after that, and I just literally saw it just systematically go down. I was like, no, if the only things that have ever served me well are the things I can influence the outcome of. And that doesn't always go the way it's planned. But
right. I mean, in terms of investment, real estate's always going to be my number one.
Yeah. That's also at all-time high right now.
Yeah. That's why I haven't bought anything in a long time.
Speaking of investments, that's one of the reasons I wanted to speak with the guy that I interviewed, Drew Meclellen. And a lot of what he talks about is investment in yourself, investment in your agency. And he's been doing this, for over 20 years. I think close to 30 working with other agencies. And I'd like to give a quick rundown, a climb, before we get into some of his clips. So Drew, he's an agency guy. So here's that quick rundown I mentioned. He got his first agency job when he was in college at Gray Advertising. Gray Advertising, definitely old school, huge agency. And I believe they just devolved, if I'm not mistaken. The brand, the agency was absorbed. In any event, then he went to Y&R. He was at Young and Rubicam, where he was a copywriter. At both of those places he was. Then he decided to start his own agency, which he still owns. During that time, he was in a group where it was essentially handed over to him. Then he founded the AMI, which is the Agency Marketing Institute. And during that time and over the years, he's got a podcast, a lot of great stuff. I highly recommend you searching him, and I also recommend that you check out the full interview, because there's a ton of stuff in there. But before we get into this first clip, I asked him, based on COVID and over the last 9 to 10 months, I wanted to get his perspective on how agencies were doing, right now. And this is what he said.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a lot of agencies got knocked to their knees in March and April. Clients froze budgets, clients went away. But for the most part, and again, I can look at agencies in a broader scope, but what I can tell you by fact are the agencies whose financials I've seen. Most of our agencies made good decisions in the spring in terms of if they had to right size staff, if they're in the US and they got the PPP loan, if they had to trim back in other places expenses. Most agencies, in my world anyway, at worst are going to finish flat in terms of their 2019 and 2020 comparisons. And several of them are going to show growth of 10 to 20%. So most agencies have recovered incredibly well. The specialists have recovered better than the generalists because CMOs are freaked out by everything that's happened, by the recession. So they're looking for their best bet in terms of agency partners to help them climb out of what they lost in terms of sales this spring or whatever it is. So who are they going to go to? They're going to go to a specialist. So those specialists, even specialists in the travel and tourism industry, are recovering better than the generalists. But most agencies overall actually are faring pretty well. So I would say maybe 10% of all agencies that I come into contact with, whether they're my agencies or not, are going to have a lower AGI at the end of 2020 than they did in 2019. But the rest are going to be flat or a notch or two above. So most agencies are doing well.
That's refreshing to hear, because we also fall into that same category. And I thought we were kind of as I mentioned earlier, the exception. But Dave, was our growth? We grew 13% over last year.
13%.
Yeah, which is fantastic in a year of COVID. I mean, beat that. I mean, that's to me, that's rock star.
Yeah, and I mean, we expanded our margin as well. So a 13% growth with an expansion of margin. I mean, can't complain.
No, and I love hearing what he's saying, because the media takes this approach where it's doom and gloom, everything's failing. Now, granted, there's businesses that are failing, make no mistake, but there are a lot of great successes. There are a lot of people that are doing really well, that have been able to adapt and pivot, and he's did a remarkable study that just proves that.
Yeah, so since 2014, every year we do some primary research. We do one research study a year, which we put under the umbrella of the Agency Edge research series. So every year we partner with a company called Audience Audit, which is a research firm. So this year, our intention in December of 2019, our plan was that we were going to go out into the field and we were going to ask clients how they were feeling about the pending recession that we were all waiting for, and how that was going to influence their agency relationship, their spending, all of that. Well, we were just getting ready to go into the field in late February when we realized the pandemic was coming. So we waited, and then we rewrote the survey to say, okay, the recession is here and we've got COVID and all of that. How are you now feeling about spending, your agency relationship, and all of that? And we went into the field the last week of June through mid-July. So right after the second quarter, which was for the US, really the worst economic quarter other than the Great Depression. And so we talked to over 1,000 respondents. Their budgets ranged up to 500 million in terms of revenue and up to 200 million in marketing spend, all the way down to like $250,000 in marketing spend. So a broad range. And honestly, when we went out into the field, I thought this is not going to be fun news to report back. This is going to be abysmal. And the respondents surprised me. 70% of them are like, you know what? Every 10 years or so, we go through an economic bump. Yes, there's a pandemic, but economically, this is no different than anything else. And half of the people who responded that way were like, actually, we're going to up our spend because everyone else is being quiet. And we know that there's market share to be taken when other people lay low during a recession. We're going to ramp up. And the other part of the people who were positive about it, if you will, we're like, you know what, we're the steady eddies. We're going to put our heads down. We're going to keep working the way we've been working. And we know that we will muscle through this like we have muscled through all the other economic downturns. And there was about 30% of the respondents who were frankly freaking out. And they were mostly people who had really been devastated in the Great Recession. So a decade ago, they either lost their job, their company might have gone out of business. They had a lot of personal pain around the recession in 07 and 08, and they were carrying all of that baggage into this recession. But for me, the great news was that the vast majority, 70%, and all of these people are actively working with agencies right now. 70% of the respondents were like, you know what? We're going to keep spending. We may change where we spend our dollars, but we're not going to change the fact that we're marketing. We're not going to change the fact that there's opportunity there that we want to take advantage of. And we're not going to change the fact that we know we need agencies to help us do that. So actually, the results were really much better news than I had hoped.
I love good news. And Drew's study just proves that. So it was saying is 70% of the people that he interviewed, these are like CMOs at large companies, said that they stayed the course. In fact, if we were going to take it, to ourselves, I'd say most of our clients would fall into that category. And part of that is we spoke with a lot of them on just being upfront, just getting in their world and understanding like, hey, these are the things you need to do. And also say a fair percentage of our clients as well actually invested more money. And if we even take a look at ourselves, that's what we did. We invested in sales heavily to pay off in 2021, and already seeing some of the return on that. But I just think it's another reason that groups like the Digital Mastermind or the AMI are really important, because they pull a lot of people together. They do studies like this. And that's the type of thing that keeps our industry moving forward at the pace it needs to move. And as we have the new year upon us, a lot of us have made resolutions. I can't tell you how many people I saw just jogging on on January 1st. It was insane. I thought there was a marathon going on. But one of those, if you're an agency, should always be to, continually increase your exposure, generate more leads, but you may get caught up in who owns this. I know I have in the past. And when I asked Drew, how involved, you as the agency owner should be in your day-to-day marketing, this is what he went ahead and said.
I think they should own it, which again, doesn't mean they should do it, but I think they should be the quarterback of that team. I think that's actually, first of all, in most small to mid-sized agencies, the agency draws its values and its vision from the owner. So I think they need to bake that into their own marketing. And so they certainly need to have their thumbprint on it, if nothing else. I don't think most agency owners are great at execution anymore. We as a general rule are not great detail people. So I think having other people on your team at least be your safety net if you're going to execute or execute for you, I think makes the most sense. But I think you should own the plan and you should own the outcomes, because again, marketing is going to eventually trickle from the sales funnel into sales, which the agency owner should own in most cases. So I think they are part of the same ecosystem. So I think the owner has to be involved in all of it. And again, if you're following our methodology of creating this cornerstone content, that needs to be, whether you pay a ghostwriter to write your book or you write your book, that needs to be done under your name, because the worst thing in the world an agency owner can do, and I've seen this happen a couple of times, is they put the spotlight on a lieutenant inside the agency. So let's say the agency owner is an introvert. They're kind of shy and they don't want to be out in public and they don't want to speak at a conference and they don't want to be on a podcast or whatever it is. So they have this trusted lieutenant that they say, you know what, you be the face of the agency, you write the book or you have the podcast. The problem is when that person gets a little bit of fame for whatever your niche is, they are prime for the poaching. And some other agency hires them away from you. And now all of a sudden that fame and that expertise and that position of authority goes right to that other agency with that person. So unless that person owns part of the agency and is sort of locked in with some golden handcuffs, I would not put the spotlight on an employee. It really does have to be on the owner. Whether you actually do the work or not is a different discussion.
A lot of big takeaways there. And that example that he gives at the end, I've seen that before, where somebody was the lieutenant, general, however you want to state it, under the chief, and actually wrote a book and mentions the other company, and the other company paid for that book, and they left. To them, that was just really attractive to a recruiter, and they were able to ask for a huge salary and bring essentially all that attention and all that marketing that was supposed to be going to their agency to that other company. So I highly recommend that. The other thing too is just kind of a recap of that is owning the plan and the outcomes. I know in the past, there has been, and a lot of agency owners are probably struggling with this right now. Like, I'm going to create more content. I'm going to write more. I'm going to start my podcast. If you do have people on your team, I would try to influence them and push as much of that on them as possible. But at the end of the day, you do have to own the outcome. You, as the head of that company, are responsible. I'm lucky. We have a division. Dave, you can come on out here and we can talk about the division where I essentially own all that, and you do what you do best is essentially on the operations and the finance side. But before that happened, what did you do with marketing and sales?
Nothing, which is why we, sought out a merger with you. I mean, I'm not the salesy person. I was always the operational, organizational, technical. So I knew I had a deficiency that I had a gap that I had to, fill. And that's why the merger was, so successful.
Yeah. And I take that you mean salesy in the best possible way, because I don't think that's a good word.
It is. I think it is. I don't think it's a bad word. I mean,
I don't think it's like, hey, what was the experience like? Yeah, it was salesy. We loved it.
Yeah, but I'm just meaning that there's a whole ecosystem of shit you have to do to pull off a sale.
I completely agree. Yeah, and I know what you meant. So, but yeah, and I think that's the important thing, right? So I know there's a ton of agencies that are starting out at the beginning of the year, and they have this resolution that they're going to get more sales, they're going to do more marketing, and I think it's important for people to realize, all right, maybe that's not for me. And if you're going to delegate that, I think that number one rule is make sure that you're not delegating too much, right? If you're going to put an employee's face on a book or something like that, I mean, I think that's a bridge, too far. I
agree. Yeah, because you're paying to build someone's brand that you can't really actually ever own.
Nope, exactly.
So,
but I think from a content perspective, whether it's a ghostwriter, copywriter, as Drew recommends, that should essentially be in your name. All right, and keeping in that same vein, when I asked Drew, all right, how much should agencies be spending on their marketing? This is what he said.
I think it's a scarcity issue. So, there's no company on the planet who should be able to do better marketing for themselves than an agency. I mean, literally, that's what we get paid to do for everybody else in our world. So if it really doesn't have to cost much of anything other than if you're going to do some paid media behind it, it shouldn't cost you much more than people's time. But if people's time is scarce, and so you have to hire someone to do something, or you don't have a talent inside let's say you decide you want to write a book about your niche or your specialty, and that's just not your gift, and you have no one on your team that's their gift, then yeah, I guess you're going to have to pay for it. But for most agencies, it's really a much greater expenditure in terms of time than it is money. And, again, if you're going after somebody who's 10% of your AGI, part of it is do the work that you would do for a client. What is the lifetime value of a client for you? How long do you typically keep a client? How long do you keep a client that is like in your sweet spot? Like, because again, you're trying to attract the best fit customers or clients for yourself, not any Tom, Dick, and Harry or, butcher, baker, and candlestick maker, but somebody who really aligns with your niche. How long do you keep that kind of client? Well, if they're worth a couple $100,000 to you a year and you keep them for 5 years, you can probably spend a pretty penny to get one.
It's just so crazy to me that agencies are so terrible at marketing themselves.
Well, you know what? The problem is it's not that they don't have the skills. It's that they do not allow themselves the time. So it is the whole stupid cobbler's children have no shoes thing, which I hate. Because it's just an excuse. They absolutely can do it. They do it every day for their clients. They get paid good money to do it. So they are absolutely skilled. It is simply that they don't make it a priority. And until it's a priority, it's not going to happen. And so when it doesn't happen, then you have to count on referrals or walk-ins. And basically that's whatever someone serves you, you have to eat. And that's a pretty unsatisfying way to grow your business, in my opinion.
Time and focus. That's the takeaway there. Spending, though, I do believe there are a lot of avenues that you can spend on. Whether it's channels such as Clutch, which we've had great success with. So that should be in your marketing playbook this year. Not only getting reviews on the organic side, but also there's advertising opportunities that you could potentially take advantage of. And if you are niche, you can really exploit the hell out of that from an advertising standpoint. But no matter what, I think 90% of it is the time and focus for your own marketing to make sure that you're producing the content necessary and really getting out there to attract the people that you want to attract. And taking it a step further, here's what Drew said about business development when we asked him, what percentage of agencies do you work with that are referral based until they go through your program? And here's what he said.
Right. Which clip are we on?
Oh, sorry, this 5.
All right.
70% of all agencies live and breathe on referrals and their own network, and really don't have a biz dev program that runs consistently and well. And so they also get stuck that if you haven't grown in the last couple of years, either by AGI or staff size or however you're measuring growth, if you're stuck at a certain size, I guarantee you it's because your biz dev program has not gotten more sophisticated.
Business development. It's one of the biggest drivers. And I would separate that away from marketing. I think a lot of that is you can lump marketing into there, but I think the main driver is you need somebody out there that's creating strategic partnerships, shaking hands, and really pressing the flesh. And now, I mean, it's a bit more digital, but it's more of the one-on-one. And how you build that program, there are a number of different ways. There's a ton of different books, but I think at the end of the day, it's assigning the role. A lot of it goes to one of the agency principals or somebody on your staff that is out there doing is exactly what I said, connecting with others, networking, creating strategic partnerships, and really, driving the business that you want, and also creating referral hubs. And we've done other episodes, which I can produce in the show notes where we talk about a lot of that. Now, we always talk about the tried and true marketing playbook. Dave and I have a lot of concerns with, the way that agencies and I talk about this with Drew a little bit, have just cobbled together this playbook. HubSpot came out with one where it's just, these are the tried and true things that you do. And everybody was doing the same thing. See a sameness. That's also something that we mention here. But here's, what Drew has to say on how agencies can market themselves with better effectiveness.
When you are really a subject matter expert, when you are an authority, then if you want to use the HubSpot model or somebody else's model, more power to you, because the content is unique enough that it stands out. But I think, for example, I guarantee you on the day that Pantone announces their color of the year, there are 27,000 agency blog posts that talk about the color of the year. Meaningless, pablum, not helpful, right? No one cares that it's whatever green it is. Like that, I think, is the sea of sameness. Now, if you're writing about your subject matter expertise and you actually do have a depth of expertise that is of value to your audience, then the way you get that information out, I'm betting, is going to be tailored to how your audience consumes content. So automatically, it's unique in terms of both the content and the delivery model. But most agencies don't discipline themselves enough. And it really is just being disciplined, right? It's just about having a discipline of, this is a priority for us. We're going to treat it like any other kind of client. And we're going to, if we say it's going to go out on Wednesday, it goes out on Wednesday. I don't care if that means everyone's up till 2 a.m. on Tuesday, but it goes out on Wednesday because we've made that commitment. We do it for clients all the time. So there is no reason other than our own lack of discipline that we don't do it for ourselves.
Amen to that.
So, what I like, you mentioned it. We railed against the generic marketing playbook that is just ineffective. And I'm glad we're not one of those agencies. But what I also love about our agency is that beyond marketing, beyond the things that we do to market the company, that we actually go in and fix problems with technology solutions. And so it's another layer of value that our clients get, that it's not just, hey, we can get you more leads, but we can make you process those leads better, or we can make your staff more efficient, or we can automate some processes that you spend a lot of time on. So we can, it's almost a whole approach, which I think really differentiates us from the sea of sameness.
I agree. I remember a conversation you and I had, I don't know, I think it was 8, I don't know, hell, maybe 8, almost 9 years ago, where we talked about, all right, and this is giving everybody like our growth strategy, but we're super transparent. If you can do it, do it. We said, all right, if you really want to get close to companies, how would you go about it? And it's like, all right, you need to be a true partner. Well, what does a true partner look like? It's somebody that you can continually bring in a flow of business, right? And then it's also, somebody that can fix a lot of the problems that you mentioned. And then, how do you make that sticky? Well, you would be a part of their technology infrastructure. So if you do all these things, why would any company ever want to separate from you? They wouldn't. And then you can continually, each client is a brick, in growth. And that's essentially what we're doing. And I think that point of differentiation is that, but it's also being really kind and considerate and a good partner along the way. And that goes a long way, right? Just really being receptive. It doesn't mean we're a pushover in that relationship by any means, but it's just offering fantastic account management service and just really good solutions. And people love that. And that's why I keep railing on Clutch. Like, all right, our clients are willing to take the time necessary to go through a third-party interview and sit through that. And that is essentially, I believe we're at what, 41 or 42 now?
Yeah, we got a lot more. And you know what I love is that one of our account managers made it part of their goal for Q1 to add 5 more.
Shout out to Beth. Yeah, she's crushed it.
But I just like that. That's proactive. I don't want to. That to me is the sign of a healthy, great business, is when your team is excited about the things that need to be done to grow the company.
I would agree.
That's huge.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. And speaking of that excitement, the burnout and self-care have been hot topics this year. Granted, they've been mentioned before, but there's been a spotlight on them with COVID. People can't tell, night from day, which day is it? Everything seems, that Groundhog Day approach. So if you're going to continually push and try to grow your business, especially at the beginning of the year, as we find ourselves in now, you have to recharge. And Drew's got some great advice on this. And here's how he recommends agency owners recharge.
I think for a lot of us, the way we kind of refilled our bucket has been taken away from us. For me, a lot of how I refueled my own tank was travel. And that's been pretty tough this year, right? And spending time I love being with big groups of agency owners. I haven't been able to do that. So I think part of it starts with, and this is not unique to agency owners, I think we all have to do this as human beings. I think you have to understand what saps your energy and what refuels your energy. And you need to be very carefully monitoring how low you allow the tank to go. So it's no different than when we drive our car. All of us, I have friends that the minute their gas tank gets to halfway empty, they're running to the gas station. I have other people who routinely run out of gas because they let it go to, too far down. We have to monitor our own gas tank. And we have to know what refuels us. And, I think for a lot of people, it is getting some fresh air. It's getting outside. I think it's getting some physical activity where we are not used to being so sedentary, so stuck in our homes or in at least a small geography that we've been able to explore. So I think part of it is that. I think it is being mindful of the people that drain you versus the people that kind of refill you. I think for a lot of agency owners, they have found outlets for their creativity that are different. So I have a lot of agency owners that are becoming great cooks or doing more work in their workshop or whatever it is. But for every one of us, it's going to be different. For me, it's been a combination of making sure that I'm not too isolated, that I have more human contact in however I can do that. So I've got 3 or 4 friends So I like single malt scotches. And so I have 3 or 4 friends, and we will once a month pick a new scotch that we've never tried before. We all go out and find it somewhere, whether we order it online or we get it from our local grocery store or liquor store. And then we get on a FaceTime call and we do a scotch tasting. And then we, shoot the breeze for an hour. And so it's a mix of something that's fun and interesting and something to look forward to and something of interest that we share. But it's really just about having human contact. So I think we have to be very mindful. Actually, I hope this is one of the things that lasts after the pandemic is gone, is I think we have to be better. Agency owners are used to burning the candle at both ends and the middle. And so I think the pandemic has forced us to be more mindful of our own sort of taking care of ourselves and making sure that we don't let the tank get too empty. So I actually hope that practice lasts long after the pandemic is gone and we're back to our frenetic schedules and hopping on planes every day and all the stuff that we, did a year ago.
Got to recharge. I agree with a lot of that, except the bourbon. I'm a tequila guy myself. The other thing too, I think is a highlight in there is the people that drain us, right?
Yeah.
It's that's so important. It's just like, what the hell am I doing around these people? There's a great guy wrote a book named Jim Lohr. I think I'm saying his name right. And it's about managing your energy versus your time. And one of the things I look at is people that zap my energy. Am I just tolerating this person? If I have that thought, I do what I can to make sure that I can move them out of my world.
Yeah, I mean, I completely believe in addition by subtraction. I mean, there has been multiple times in the Oyova history where pulling the plug on someone was the best thing for everyone. So, yeah, I highly believe in that. I don't really feel like a lot of that resonates with me. Like I used to have a down period around August. Usually, it was always in the fall. And DMG, the yearly meetup would be that recharge. But on a week to week, month to month basis, for the most part, I have I can keep that energy pretty consistent, and because I don't feel like, you know what, and I also say that we don't have a draining client, and we don't have draining employees right now. So that's why I've been able to keep it maintained. But yeah, I've definitely lived through those eras where a client's just draining my joy.
Yeah. Or it could be even an employee too.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is, a lot of things have changed, right? During that time, we've been through a merger, right? Over the last 2 years. And you probably have a healthy routine going, right? You also have a daughter, right? So I'm sure that's worked into that mix too. So I think it's also people looking at, what is their routine? Like I talk to people now that they get up, and these are even some successful business owners that have no set time of day that they get up every morning. It fluctuates. You don't?
No.
Like, so what is the range of time that you'll get up in the morning?
7:30 to 8:45. I mean, it really depends on when Emma starts screaming.
Really? Yeah. That's what I'm saying, right? So to me, that's so foreign. Like I have to wake up at the same time every single day. Yeah. Like I need my routine, because if I don't, things just start falling out of the wayside. And that's something that protects me from burnout, but it wouldn't necessarily, protect you or somebody else. So I recommend that to people. Like, all right, I'll ask. Like, all right, well, tell me about your day. And okay, well, if you have no set routine, your locus of control is out. You need something that you can control. And the only thing you can really control for the most part is your calendar.
Yeah.
Just another piece of advice. Energy and calendar control. All right. So coming up to this last clip, there's only one thing that you had to listen to based on this interview. I also highly recommend that once we publish the live interview, you go and listen to that. But if you only had to listen to one thing, I listened to this part. So when what agencies are missing, here's what Drew said.
Yeah. So I think the first thing, and this goes back to what we talked about in the very beginning of the interview. I think the first mistake that many agency owners make is that they do not understand the financial metrics that are very agency specific, and they don't run their business by them. One of the reasons why most AMI agencies are having a good year, despite that it's 2020, is because AMI has pounded into their head financial metrics and best practices that they live and breathe by. And so that allowed them to make really smart decisions all along the way that really protected their business. So number one, you got to understand how to run your business by the numbers. And the biggest mistake most agencies make is they're overstaffed. And you don't know that if you don't understand your numbers. Number two, I think most agencies rely on I'm going to throw the net out, and whatever referrals or my network brings in, whatever the net catches that day, we're going to eat. Some days it's a beautiful salmon, and other days it's a boot. And that is not the right way to run your business in the long run. You really do need to have a business development strategy that is consistent like clockwork over time. And whether you want to believe in the authority thing or the niche thing, that's certainly my belief, and based on my almost 30 years of agency experience, what I believe is the right way to go. And I certainly think it's reflective of how consumers buy everything today. The reality is we buy everything without the vendor knowing we're ready to buy. We're 80% of the way through the buying decision before the vendor even knows we're looking at them. And that's true for agency services as well. But whether you want to do that or not, you got to have something in place that is telling the world who you are and how smart you are and how you can help them on a regular basis. Otherwise, your every agency goes through ebbs and flows, but you can sure even that out to a great extent with a consistent biz dev program.
Boom. Run your agency by the numbers and have a solid, consistent business development program.
So I absolutely love the numbers aspect. January 4th was the first business day of 2021. And by 2 p.m. on January 4th, I had my books complete for 2020. Had all numbers figured out, everything, what our profitability was instantly. And you got to be able to efficiently know what's going on quickly. And it shouldn't need a long drawn out process to find out if you're losing money or making money this month.
Completely agree. But before you started, did you think you would have it done that quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't like, this is going to be an insurmountable mountain. Like I'm going to be doing this for 2 days. It was like, no, I'll have this done today.
No, because last year I realized I was like, wow, this is awesome.
All right, well, fair enough.
But eventually one year I was like, wow, this is, but the thing that I probably would dread is that end of the year, end of the quarter, start of the year, there's a lot of things triggering. So I got to do quarterly reviews. I got to do, getting taxes ready. I got to close out last year. I got to get the new year forms set up. It's like, so it's more chore than just because there's so many things going on at the same time.
Yeah, they're sandwiched. So it's like a hyperactivity toward the beginning and the end of the quarters.
Yes. No, I mean, this is because this is also the end of the year, it makes this end of quarter just, more things. Other quarters are normal.
Right. I think that's important for other companies to realize. I know we give like quarterly raises. I know there's some people that don't, they give like a yearly raise. So I think if you spread out, the responsibilities and the actions as much as possible throughout the year. I mean, we go quarterly. It makes things a lot smoother rather than these just jagged impacting, issues, right?
Right.
Also bonuses, right? So bonuses are typically given out, quarterly. I know some companies that just wait to give it all out toward, the end of the year. All right. Well, that's something that's, very energy zapping and, concerning, because the end of the year, you're going to see this large sum of money, leave. And if it was COVID and everybody's, planning on something, maybe, if you didn't hit your numbers right, that number wasn't as high as your employees thought. So you might be seeing some people walk out that door.
Yeah, completely agree.
Boom, boom, boom. All right. I guess some other DMG announcements. We're doing it in Vegas this year, baby. Viva Las Vegas. Why? Nothing against Dallas. Dallas seemed great. Still got to update the website with that, but Dallas didn't want us. We tried to book with numerous hotels and they just were not conducive based on the dates and things that we wanted. So that's a big update that you will see. If you want more information on that, go ahead and shoot me an email, Jon, Jon, at digitalmastermind.com. And please share the show. I think Drew was a fantastic addition. So check out the full interview that will be published to YouTube. And other than that, thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate you. Like, share, subscribe.